But after that, they left a follow-up reply saying, I know right, Lamau, at least it was funny. Which, hey, everyone wins, I guess. I'm not really sure how to take this, I just think it's funny. Hi, how are ya? My name's Beta, and today we'll be going over what I like to call the furry struggle moment of the MSI Russia Twitter account. I don't know if it was really a struggle, but it was definitely a moment. I don't have a better name for this situation, okay? I'm doing my best here with these names. But regardless of that, today I want to go over the situation where the MSI Russia Twitter account, or at least whoever was behind it at the time, left a very interesting reply to another brand account's tweet and kind of just full sent it with it too. Went from 1 to 100 real quick. And it pretty much made everyone who saw the initial reply question if the person behind the MSI Russia Twitter account was a furry. Which I usually don't like doing stuff like this where I guess whether or not someone's a furry based on some criteria, because you know, it's up to them to decide if they're a furry or not. We can only guess for all we know. But to some extent, there is a line that you cross with knowing so much about furry without being one. And if I'm being completely honest, the criteria here for them being a furry is pretty tremendous, because I haven't seen a brand account interact with furries without any sort of buildup. And in this one reply, it just kind of happened. They just went straight for it. No warning. The conversation itself had nothing to do with furries, and the people involved had nothing to do with furries, but it happened, and now we're here, so yay. And based on that criteria alone, along with what we're going to be talking about later today, I'd like to think that the person who runs the MSI Russia Twitter account is a furry. Maybe. I guess. Or maybe they're just a master at marketing on brand accounts on social media. But hey, the best part about this is we'll never really know because the MSI Russia Twitter account no longer exists. That's right, they're just gone. The account's gone. I don't know if they pulled the plug on it for some reason or another. I'd like to think that the reason why the account doesn't exist isn't because of that one reply they left, but that's why I want to go over this today, and hopefully we can come to some conclusions on our own. And there's a lot more to this than the initial YouTube short that I did on this before. I thought I had covered everything as fully as possible in that 1-minute video. Go and give it a watch if you haven't already. Pretty much summarizes what we're talking about today, but with less details. Because after that video, I did like 5 more minutes of research, and I found a couple more things about this situation that leave me with even more questions than before. So with all that being said, let's get on to the furry struggle moment, or rather, shamelessly furry moment from the MSI Russia Twitter account. Our story starts in April of 2019 with a tweet from the Russian flight finder account known as AVIA Sales. Avia Sales? Avia Sales? I don't know how to pronounce it. I've never heard of the company before. Cut me some slack. But they put out one of those interactive tweets which translates to, if you were cheese, what kind? Write your version in the replies. Now hopefully I'm not the only one thinking this, but isn't it kind of strange to see tweets like this coming from brand accounts? I feel like this would be more fitting to see from like a Parmesan cheese company's Twitter account. If they tweeted something like, what's your favorite cheese? Leave it in the replies. If it's not Parmesan, it's okay to be wrong. Something like that I feel like would be more funny and quirky. But like, seeing it come from a Russian flight finder account, I don't know, maybe I'm missing some context or lore about the AVIA Sales Twitter account. But seeing an interactive tweet from them, let alone with the focus being cheese, is weird to me. And I'm a furry, so yeah. But AVIA Sales tweeted this, and this is where the MSI Russia Twitter account comes in, where they decided to contribute to the post and left a very interesting reply, which jump-started this whole furry moment. In their reply, they simply said, sexy, 3, and attached an art piece of someone's red and white Sergal fursona looking at the viewer in some manner. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, this just went from 1 to 100 real quick, which for those that don't get the joke here, there is an inside joke with the Sergal fursona species, which for those that don't know, it's a fictional furry fandom created species where the shape of their head is kind of like that of a cheese wedge. And so the running joke is that Sergals are cheese. So like if you get a bunch of Sergals together, put them in a circle, you get a wheel of cheese. It's kind of funny and cutesy. So whenever you're in the furry fandom, you hear Sergals mentioned, there's gonna be that one guy making a cheese joke. Kind of like the same thing with protogens being toasters or Windows XP or something like that. I don't know. Now, the thing that I find weird about this reply in general is that it's extremely different in how other brand accounts have interacted with furries years prior. And don't get me wrong, I've seen Voice Mods and Opera GX's tweets and they just kind of go for it. But keep in mind, there's almost always some build up to getting to that point, if some brand accounts ever do. And usually when I've seen brand accounts interacting with furries in some way, way, shape, or form, whether it's directly or indirectly for the first time, it's generally in a precautious manner, or at the very least they allude to knowing about furries, kind of like leaving breadcrumbs of vaguely acknowledging their existence, the subculture, the community, whatever you may have it. And usually it's done from some offhand joke, whether it's, oh whoa, what's this, some sort of saying, mentioning a fursona or furry art in some way, shape, or form, or just simply replying to a furry interacting with their account. But meanwhile, here we have the MSI Russia Twitter account, or whoever was running it. They didn't do any of that and just went straight for it, let alone with an inside joke from the furry community about Sergals relating to cheese. I feel like that in and of itself is very telling. And that's not the only thing about this post, that we still haven't talked about the art that they posted with it. Now I can see why they use that art piece in particular. It's supposed to be a red and white Sergal fursona. It relates to the colors of MSI being red and white, similar to their logo. So it's just kind of fitting that they used it. But where did this art piece come from? As in, like, where did they find it initially? See what I mean? That there's a lot more to dissect from this initial reply. I know I get a lot of shit for dissecting memes and images, but like, this is how you come to the conclusions, like what I'm finding now. Personally, if I were a social media manager and my job was to look for a red and white Sergal fursona like that, I would have just simply Googled it and gone to like the first 5 images and settled with that. But I did that. I didn't find that. I found so many other options that could have very well worked for what they were trying to do in the reply, but they didn't use any of that. So why specifically this one? And that made me even more curious to find out who the artist was, where it came from, who the fursona was, so on and so forth. Because they didn't attach it at all in the reply, and every screenshot that I saw from the tweet didn't show the full picture. So as sort of a last resort, I did a reverse image search, took the art itself, cropped it properly so that you could see the full thing, or as much of it as was shown, and from the results, I did find the original art piece on E621, which for those that don't know is a website known for NSFW furry art, so yeah. Awesome. Now to clarify, the art in and of itself is completely clean and safe for work. Here it is for those that are curious, which if you can tell in the bottom right hand corner, there's a watermark which tells that the artist is Zephyru for this art piece. And the owner of the fursona I couldn't find out. I asked around, looked around. So my guess is maybe the artist owns the Sergal fursona too, but again, just a guess, not really relevant. But what I'm wondering now is where did they find this art piece? Because things can change within 4 years or so. Maybe back then it was a lot easier to find this red and white Sergal fursona, because in the associated E621 post, there was a source linking to a Fur Affinity page, which is taken down now. There's no Fur Affinity link to it. But even still, that leaves 2 options, Fur Affinity or E621. Pick your poison. Where'd you find it? You see what I mean with being left with more questions about this than there should be? There are lots of questions here I need answering. Will we find out? Probably not. The account is long since gone, so there's no way of us figuring this out. But as for the post, I'm not sure how it was received by the online community. I'm sure it made its rounds online. You know, people memeing it. The furry community was probably thrilled about it, seeing that they were getting attention, because furries love attention. That's just how it be. But the post itself didn't get any major attention till a year and a half later in late 2020. And this is where we get a couple of our questions answered as to why this was posted, and sort of a context as to what happened after. Now, part 2 to this starts with a quote retweet from the user known as Shugowa, just simply saying, "Excuse me?" And you're probably wondering, wait a minute, doesn't the Sergal in their profile picture look oddly similar to the one that MSI Russia posted? And to clarify, those two are completely different fursonas. I asked Shugowa and they said that that's not their character, so we still don't know who owns the fursona in the art piece, by the way. But after this, the MSI Russia Twitter account followed up from their original reply and gave some context as to what happened after that, nearly a year later from the initial one. But they replied saying, "Please take our sincere apologies for this tweet. We investigated this cause and decided not to terminate our contract with the offending manager since he's a pretty nice and productive guy, and one accidental blurt doesn't mean we have to part ways." So okay, that's a pretty wholesome ending. I could see multiple scenarios where it doesn't work out and we don't hear an answer back. At least they're being honest about the manager of the account, or at least the one at the time, being a productive and nice guy. You know, you love to see that. A company that doesn't, let go go of people for just one small oopsie, which I'd call this a small oopsie, if anything. Maybe more like a happy accident, because nothing bad happened from it, I don't think. But after that, they left a follow-up reply saying, I know, right, Lamau, at least it was funny. Which, hey, everyone wins, I guess. I'm not really sure how to take this, I just think it's funny. And I think most people do as well. Now, besides the tweets and replies we've gone through so far, there are a few others from the MSI Russia Twitter account that sort of allude to that manager being more of a furry, as in how they've interacted with furries and how they talk about the whole furry subject. And so let's go over a few of them now. This comes from a Telegram channel, but this was when MSI Russia tweeted, feeling cute right now. I don't know, might delete later. And they're wearing a Lucky the Dragon costume head. Very interesting. Not necessarily furry, but interesting nonetheless. Someone quote retweeted saying, MSI, Merping, Sergals, International. MSI Russia replies saying, don't tell anyone. How many RTs for you to only post furry art? Bro, we trying to sell laptops, you know? Which, you know what? Fair point. At least they're being honest about it. That's what I kind of like about this brand account, is that they're being very honest about what they're like trying to do as a brand account. Like that they're representative of a brand. They're not like trying to be your friend or make relatable posts for the sake of appeasing an audience. They're just trying to sell their product. That's it. They were making a fucking Sergal cheese joke. Their Twitter guy has to be a furry. OMG. Yes. Oh, whoa. I mean, I feel like that's proof in and of itself that whoever they're talking to is a furry. Someone replied with their Sergal profile picture. MSI Gaming Russia replies, 10 out of 10. Very cute. What species is your fursona? Our species is a red dragon. The species of our manager is to be unknown, as we represent a brand and not a person who manages this account. Now, based on those replies alone, you can kind of tell that whoever was running the account did have some intentions of poking fun and having fun with the whole furry thing, but they also didn't lose focus with being like, hey, we're just a brand account. We're just trying to sell stuff here. So all in all, for like what MSI Russia was doing with regards to this whole situation and answering questions and replying to those that were interacting with their posts, they did a pretty good job with it. You know, I like it. I like their approach. They're not like trying to be too friendly or like making friends on social media, build a community. They're just trying to sell laptops. That's really it. Is their job, I think, so good on them. But besides some of those questions being answered, there's still a couple of things we don't know. And the big question, especially for me, is what happened to the MSI Russia Twitter account? As far as I know, one day it just kind of disappeared. I'm not sure if there was like a recall on the amount of MSI Twitter accounts, because correct me if I'm wrong, and I very well might be wrong here, but I feel like there was a point where there were like at least 10 MSI themed Twitter accounts. So maybe one day they decided, we have too many, we'll like roll them back a little bit, and maybe MSI Russia was one of those. I don't know. I would like to know one day, so if anyone has any info on that, please let me know in the comments. But I guess that just leaves us with the mystery of the MSI Russia Twitter account. But from the interactions that they had with furries and the overall people interested in this sort of happening, it seemed like they were just looking to have a good time and make a funny post. They even follow up saying, I know, right? At least it's funny, Lamau. So there's got to be some humor involved with this. And it seems like a majority of people who saw this felt the same about it as well. It was just a funny little post to interact with, and it was a very clever inside joke within the furry subculture. But there are still some unknowns that we'll never really fully know about this, like if the person behind the account was a furry, not that that's really important, but other things like how they found the art piece, what happened after the reply was left, how did others react. But the fact that they went back and replied to the post and left sort of an apology on it a year or so, year and a half later, just kind of goes to show that it wasn't really a big deal or a big thing. And it was supposed to be fun, and all in all, it was taken as fun. So on that note, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this little story, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And if you want more stuff like this, please give me some recommendations for other accounts or happenings or events on social media that I can go over. I'm trying to shift gears towards more of talking about internet culture and all that, because that's kind of neat to me. So if you have any recommendations for other things I can go over, be sure to let me know. This video also acts as a precursor to the whole MSI Furry Arc video that I have coming out in the future, involving the MSI USA Twitter account, interacting with furries, and vice versa. So by the time that video is out, if you haven't watched it, be sure to go and give it a watch. I am sure you'll absolutely love it. But you know, this is kind of necessary to talk about, knowing it's under the same MSI umbrella. So yeah, it was a neat thing that I wanted to go over. But that about does it for me. Have a wonderful night, and as always, stay life jagged, guys. Take care.